On July 22, 1979, 6 days after taking the presidency of Iraq, Saddam Hussein called an emergency meeting of his own party and ordered the cameras to keep rolling. He sat on the stage smoking a cigar and announced that traitors were sitting in the room. Then a broken man was brought out to read 68 names. One by one, as each name was called, men were escorted from the hall. The survivors chanted their loyalty. 21 were shot, and the tape of that afternoon was copied and sent to party branches across the country. This is the story of a man who filmed his own coup and ruled for 24 years on the fear it created. Saddam Hussein was born on April 28, 1937, in the mud brick village of al-Awja, near the northern city of Tikrit. His father, Hussein Abd al-Majid, disappeared before his birth, leaving his mother, Suba Tawfiq, in poverty. The infant was sent to live with relatives, eventually finding a home with his maternal uncle, Khairallah Talfa. Talfa, an Arab nationalist army officer jailed after the failed 1941 anti-British coup, became Saddam's mentor. This tribal connection solidified when Saddam later married Talfa's daughter, Sajida. While rural hardship shaped Saddam's youth, his uncle's political network offered an escape. In 1957, Saddam joined the clandestine Arab Socialist Ba'ath Party. At the time, the organization was a fringe movement with fewer than 1,000 members nationwide. For an ambitious provincial youth, this small party provided the direction, ideology, and contacts that would alter his trajectory. On October 7, 1959, a Ba'athist hit squad intercepted Prime Minister Abd al-Karim Qasim's motorcade on Al-Rashid Street in Baghdad. The plan quickly fell apart. 22-year-old Saddam Hussein, tasked with providing cover fire, panicked and opened fire prematurely. The ambush was botched. Qasim's chauffeur was killed, but the Prime Minister survived with only a wounded arm. Saddam, struck in the left leg by a stray bullet, fled the chaotic scene, eventually escaping to Syria and then Cairo. Years later, after Saddam seized absolute power, the regime transformed this tactical failure into a founding myth. The state-sponsored film Long Days dramatized a heroic escape. Saddam swimming the freezing Tigris River and using a pocket knife to carve the bullet from his own leg. While the physical scar on his thigh was real, the legend of the lone invulnerable revolutionary was entirely manufactured to legitimize his rise. On July 17, 1968, a bloodless Ba'athist coup installed Ahmed Hassan al-Bakr, a general from Tikrit, as president of Iraq. Saddam Hussein became al-Bakr's deputy and chief of the security apparatus, spending 11 years quietly consolidating his influence from the second position. In this role, Saddam systematically constructed a massive intelligence network, including the Directorate of General Security, to monitor the military, the civil service, the party, and the wider population. He staffed these agencies with trusted regional loyalists linked to his native Tikrit. When Iraq nationalized its oil industry in June 1972, followed by the global 1973 price shock, the state treasury swelled. Saddam directed this sudden influx of oil wealth into ambitious social programs. The state funded free primary health care, expanded school enrollment, and launched a national literacy campaign. Within a decade, adult illiteracy fell from roughly 50% to about 20%. Yet these social gains and secret police repression were simultaneous realities. The same revenues that built modern clinics and classrooms financed a shadow state of surveillance, torture, and control. This security architecture, designed to eliminate any potential threat to the regime, became the most durable political legacy of al-Bakr's decade in power. On July 16, 1979, President Ahmed Hassan al-Bakr resigned, officially citing failing health. For years, al-Bakr had pursued a unification plan with Syria that would have placed Syrian President Hafez al-Assad above Saddam Hussein in a joint leadership. With al-Bakr's departure, the unification proposal died. Saddam immediately assumed the presidency, the leadership of the Ba'ath Party, and the chairmanship of the Revolutionary Command Council. 6 days later, on July 22nd, Saddam convened an emergency meeting of approximately 100 senior party officials at Al-Khuld Hall in Baghdad, ordering state film crews to record the entire proceeding. The first to speak was Muhi Abdul Hussein Mashhadi, the party's Secretary General, who had recently objected to al-Bakr's forced removal. Arrested and tortured in the days leading up to the meeting, Mashhadi was brought before the audience to confess to a fictitious Syrian-backed conspiracy to overthrow the new president. Mashhadi read aloud from a list of 68 alleged co-conspirators. As he called each name, armed guards entered the smoke-filled room and escorted the accused from the hall. Saddam sat at the podium smoking a cigar and occasionally wiping away tears for the camera, while the remaining audience members, realizing their survival hung in the balance, frantically chanted their loyalty. Following the purge, a special tribunal issued 22 death sentences and 33 prison terms, while 13 individuals were released. On August 8th, 21 of the condemned officials were executed by firing squad. Mashhadi was executed the same day. Unverified, second-hand accounts from survivors suggest that remaining party leaders were handed weapons and forced to participate in the executions, binding them to the regime through shared guilt. Saddam subsequently distributed copies of the videotape to Ba'ath Party branches across Iraq, transforming a single afternoon of terror into a permanent, portable warning of his absolute rule. In September 1980, Saddam redirected the state's newly centralized power outward. The 1979 Islamic Revolution in neighboring Iran posed both an ideological threat to Iraq's secular regime and a perceived strategic opportunity to assert dominance over the Persian Gulf. Saddam tore up the 1975 Algiers Agreement governing the Shatt al-Arab waterway and launched a full-scale invasion, expecting a swift victory against a disorganized neighbor. Instead, the war ground on for 8 bloody years, ending in 1988 with no significant border changes. Total casualty estimates vary, with some historical accounts placing deaths near 500,000 and overall casualties between 1 and 2 million. From roughly 1983, Iraqi forces deployed mustard gas and nerve agents against Iranian troops. Independent records estimate these chemical attacks caused at least 20,000 deaths. Throughout the conflict, Gulf states financed Baghdad's war effort, while Washington and Moscow provided tacit, strategic, and diplomatic backing. The muted international response to Iraq's chemical weapons use reinforced the regime's calculation that external pressure was survivable, locking the nation into a state of permanent military mobilization. In the final year of the war with Iran, the Iraqi regime redirected its military apparatus inward, launching a systematic campaign against Kurdish communities in northern Iraq. Codenamed Operation Anfal, this internal offensive was designed to permanently suppress Kurdish nationalism and depopulate strategic northern borders. Saddam's cousin, Ali Hassan al-Majid, was appointed to run the campaign with absolute administrative authority. Under his command, the military emptied or destroyed more than 4,000 villages, systematically dismantling the rural society of the north. Human Rights Watch documentation later estimated that at least 50,000 Kurdish civilians were killed or disappeared during the operations, while other independent researchers placed the figure closer to 100,000. Kurdish organizations assert that the actual toll reached 182,000. On March 16, 1988, Iraqi forces launched a chemical weapons attack on the town of Halabja, killing an estimated 3,000 to 5,000 people. Kurdish and international observers frequently claim this represented the largest chemical weapon attack ever directed against a civilian population. Nearly 2 decades later, in 2007, an Iraqi court used captured state records, military cables, and forensic evidence to convict al-Majid of genocide, sentencing him to death. On July 8, 1982, a small group of local insurgents lay in wait near the town of Dujail, north of Baghdad. As Saddam Hussein's armored motorcade passed through the farming community, the gunmen opened fire. Saddam survived the ambush unharmed. The state response was immediate and calculated. Security forces swept through the area, detaining hundreds of local residents. Ultimately, 148 men and boys were arrested, condemned to death by a revolutionary court, and executed. To systematically punish the community, state bulldozers flattened the town's valuable date palm and fruit orchards. While Dujail was smaller in scale than the regional campaigns in the north, it left an unusually clear bureaucratic record. Investigators later recovered the original revolutionary court documents, complete with Saddam's handwritten signature approving the death sentences. This precise paper trail provided the direct link of executive intent that larger operations lacked. 2 decades later, the single file formed the legal foundation for the capital case that ended in Saddam's execution. By 1990, the economic strain of the 8-year war with Iran left Iraq with roughly $80 billion in debt, much of it owed to Kuwait. Saddam accused his southern neighbor of depressing global oil prices and illegally slant drilling into the shared Rumaila oil field. On July 25, 1990, Saddam met with United States Ambassador April Glaspie. According to Iraqi transcripts, Glaspie stated Washington had no opinion on inter-Arab border disputes. While some interpret this as a tacit green light for action, the official American diplomatic record contains no such authorization. On August 2, 1990, Iraqi forces invaded and annexed Kuwait. The occupation ended in early 1991 when a United States-led coalition launched a devastating bombing campaign, followed by a swift 100-hour ground war. In March 1991, encouraged by American radio broadcasts calling for rebellion, Shia populations in the south and Kurds in the north rose in revolt, temporarily seizing control of most of the country. But when no foreign military intervened to support them, Saddam's Republican Guard systematically crushed the rebellions. Throughout the 1990s, stringent United Nations sanctions crippled the Iraqi economy. A 1999 UNICEF survey estimated that 500,000 excess child deaths resulted from the embargo, though subsequent independent studies challenged these methods, leaving the true toll of the sanctions highly contested. During the years of economic isolation, under international sanctions, the physical presence of the regime expanded even as the country's public infrastructure decayed. Grand palaces, towering statues, and omnipresent portraits kept Saddam's image at the absolute center of daily life. This cult of personality extended to his sons, Uday and Qusay, who came to represent the privilege and the violent future of the dynasty. Their lives ended on July 22, 2003, during a fierce firefight with American forces in Mosul, a date that echoed, by pure coincidence, the Al-Khuld Hall purge exactly 24 years prior. This devotion culminated in a late 1990s project in which a calligrapher spent 2 years transcribing a 600-page Quran. The regime claimed the book was written in Saddam's own blood, though medical experts dismissed the claim as biologically impossible. While the blood ink narrative is highly doubted, the physical manuscript itself does exist, locked away inside a vault. Decades later, Iraq has still not decided what to do with the document. The 2003 invasion of Iraq was justified in part by claims that the regime possessed weapons of mass destruction, though those stockpiles were never found. When Baghdad fell on April 9, 2003, Saddam Hussein vanished from public view, prompting coalition forces to designate him the ace of spades in their deck of most wanted fugitives. For 235 days, A local farmer named Allah Namik hid the former dictator, digging a crude underground shelter on his property and serving as his sole cook and barber. The manhunt ended on December 13th, 2003. Acting on intelligence extracted from a captured bodyguard, about 600 soldiers and a special operations task force descended on 2 isolated farms near the town of Ad-Dawer. The initial search turned up nothing. Then soldiers located a concealed, dirt-covered hatch. Beneath it lay a concrete crawl space about 6 feet deep. Saddam offered no resistance as he was pulled into the light. Inside the hole, troops recovered a pistol, an assault rifle, and $750,000 in cash. According to military after-action accounts, the former president surrendered and declared, "I am Saddam Hussein, president of Iraq, and I am willing to negotiate." The Iraqi High Tribunal chose to prosecute Saddam first for the 1982 Dujail massacre rather than the larger campaigns of Anfal or the invasion of Kuwait. Dujail offered a direct bureaucratic trail, including documents bearing Saddam's handwritten signature. This strategy prioritized a swift conviction over the full scale of his actions. The proceedings were highly volatile. 3 defense lawyers were assassinated during the trial. On November 5, 2006, the tribunal convicted Saddam of crimes against humanity and sentenced him to death by hanging. Saddam requested execution by firing squad, arguing he remained a military commander, but the court refused. The execution took place before dawn on December 30th, 2006, coinciding with the first day of Eid al-Adha. The timing drew immediate condemnation across the region. While the official broadcast remained silent, an unauthorized mobile phone recording captured the chamber's final moments. On this tape, witnesses taunted Saddam, who responded by asking if this was their manhood, smiled, and began reciting the Islamic Declaration of Faith as the trapdoor opened. Before dawn the next day, Saddam was buried in his birthplace of al-Awja. In 2014, the tomb was heavily damaged, and during the 2015 battle for Tikrit, it was reportedly leveled. While tribal leaders claim they relocated the remains beforehand, the location of his body remains unknown. Behind this empty grave, the state he constructed dissolved. The coalition's decision to disband the Iraqi army of 400,000 members fueled years of insurgency and sectarian conflict, often led by former Ba'athist officers. The ruler who filmed his own coup to make fear permanent left behind a surviving tape, an unstable nation, and an unknown grave. If you want to see more historical investigations like this, please subscribe to the channel. Today, the physical monuments of the regime are gone and the dictator's grave is lost to history. Yet the mechanics of his rule remain a chilling blueprint. Absolute power does not require grand palaces, only the systematic weaponization of shared guilt. The surviving tape reminds us that the most enduring tool of tyranny is not the weapon, but the camera capturing our silence.